We have been told for 16 months to keep ourselves and our families safe by putting a mask on. Those behaviors are going to be really hard to change, and there is no mandate to take it off. What we're saying is now this is safe. Work at your own speed. Work with your own family and your own businesses to remove them when necessary.
And if you're immunocompromised and fully vaccinated, what would you recommend?
Thank you very much for that question. Certainly, we know that, and there are emerging data to suggest that if you don't have a fully competent immune system from chemotherapy, from transplants, from other immune modulating agents, that the vaccine may not have worked as well for you. So please, before you take off your mask, consult your physician.
All right. Dr. Rochelle Walensky, CDC Director, thank you for coming on, sharing your perspective with us. I know it's been a long week, and here's hoping everything keeps safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chuck.
When we come back, after the Liz Cheney ouster, can anyone survive in today's Republican Party without appeasing Donald Trump's lies about the 2020 election? I'll talk to two Republican members of Congress, Dan Crenshaw and Adam Kinzinger, about that debate next. Welcome back. The sacking of Congresswoman Liz Cheney last week was certainly what happens to someone in Republican leadership who refuses to embrace former President Trump's lie that the 2020 election was stolen. But it may be just as much an attack on our national memory. Here's House Leader Kevin McCarthy last week.
And I don't think anybody is questioning the legitimacy of the presidential election. I think that is all over with.
Well, that would be news to the former president himself, who has made it clear it's not all over with, at least for him. Then there are these statements from Republican House members looking to wipe clean our collective memory of January 6th.
The truth is being censored and covered up. As a result, the DOJ is harassing peaceful patriots across the country.
In fact, it was Trump supporters who lost their lives that day, not Trump supporters who were taking the lives of others.
If you didn't know the TV footage was a video from January the 6th, you would actually think it was a normal tourist visit.
So joining me now are two Republican members of the House, Adam Kinzinger of Illinois, one of the remaining Republican members of Congress who has remained critical of Mr. Trump and publicly supportive of Liz Cheney, and Dan Crenshaw of Texas, who says he's neither a Trump loyalist nor an anti-Trumper. And I'm going to begin with Congressman Crenshaw. Congressman, welcome to Meet the Press. And let me just start with whether you agree with the following analysis, which is Liz Cheney was kicked out of leadership simply because she wouldn't carry the water of former President Trump's election lies. Do you agree with that statement?
No, fundamentally, I don't. Look, thanks for having me on. I was a little surprised because I've been so detached from this drama, and it is drama over the past month. But I have followed it. And look, you can't forget that we already had this vote for Liz Cheney. We had this vote, and that vote was directly because of her vote for impeachment. And she won overwhelmingly. The Republican conference said, look, we disagree, and Liz did not apologize. And she said she would not apologize. And she still won that vote overwhelmingly to be a leader in our conference. You can't forget that. You can't gloss over that fact. But what happened after that, and I think the reason that a lot of our colleagues got more frustrated with her is because effectively she kept demanding that everybody else start apologizing. So she refuses to apologize, which is fine. I don't think she should. But then she demands that everybody else does. And I think what Kevin McCarthy was trying to say there was, look, there is disagreement and it's time to move on. We can keep having that fight if we'd like, but what is the point and what is the outcome? When in reality, we need to be talking about the things that American people actually care about. I got to tell you, this is not the subject that I'm asked about. I get asked a lot of questions.
Sure.
I'm always doing events. I'm always meeting with people. I never get asked about this. I get asked about why is there rising inflation? Why is there a border crisis? What is going on in the Middle East? Why can't we get gas? What is happening to our energy infrastructure? Why can't I hire people? Why are they getting paid by the government to stay at home instead of come to work? These are things that really affect people, not this internal drama. And one of the reasons I agreed to come on your show is basically to say that this isn't that important to people.
Well, but why should anybody believe a word you say if the Republican Party itself doesn't have credibility? I want you to take a look at what Liz Cheney said to CNN on Friday, because this is her rationale for fighting it. Take a listen.
For Republicans to be in a position where we can stop those policies, we've got to be able to tell people you can trust us. You can trust us to be based around conservative principles and to reject the lie and to protect the Constitution.
Look, for her and for many Americans, sitting here and saying, oh, there's disagreement about the election. Look, there's not disagreement about the facts. This is, so do any of your critiques come across as credible if you can't accept the fundamental fact that our democracy held a free and fair election?
No, but if I can speak for myself, of course, and you know where I've been on this issue, I assume, right?
Well, I do. In fact,
You know,
in December,
I
know
can
how you
stand by
voted.
everything I've ever said.
I understand that, but in December, you signed on to that lawsuit that the Texas Attorney General filed to question the elections of other states, which seemed to be a pretty anti-federalist thing to do. Why did you sign on to that?
Painted that as, and you guys in the press, because you guys in the press painted that as some extreme action, and of course it wasn't. That amicus brief was a simple question of the Supreme Court and saying, can you please speak to this question of whether process changes in the election last minute, not approved by the legislature, can be deemed constitutional? It was a question. Now they didn't want to answer that question, and I said it's unconstitutional for us to overturn the election in Congress. So I did not vote.
You don't feel like you fed, but
look. But
this is the issue that many people have, is that you're sitting here trying to say no. I just had a specific question, yet what you did gets weaponized by the former president. Did you see the rantings of him yesterday? And to the point where a Republican official in Maricopa County called the former president unhinged. I understand you guys want to put this behind you, but Chuck, he is the leader of your party, and he doesn't stop talking about this nonsense.
Chuck, he's one of many leaders in the party. He's a former president. We're 5 months into President Biden's presidency, and there is a time to move on. And look, you guys in the press love doing this, and I get it, right? the press is largely liberal, they're largely pro-Democrat.
No, don't start that. That is the late look. There's nothing lazier. There's nothing lazier than that.
There's a lot of reasoning to keep this alive.
I understand what you're trying to appease.
People in my party that take the bait. I'm not going to take the bait here.
I'm not trying to bait you. I'm trying to figure out
looking for.
Why do you appeal? Why do we sit here and have a political party that is basically rallying around this bizarre lie and mythology that the former president is doing, and you guys just want to say, hey, pay no attention to this. That somehow we in the press are bringing that up. It's the former president.
I already debunked the notion that there's no space in the party for that. Remember, Liz won that first election.
She's not there now.
She won that first leadership vote. Okay? Well, yeah, and I told you why. I helped you understand why. And what I'm trying to help you understand is that these are not the phone calls I get about this, about who's the leader of the party, what's happening with Trump. My Republican supporters do not ask me about Trump. They don't ask me about what he said. They're not riled up about it. You know what they're asking about? What are we doing about over 250,000 illegal crossings on our border in the last 2 months? That's what they're asking about. How is that sustainable? What about my inflation? What about my savings that are now less valuable because of rising inflation, because we're spending money that we don't have? My small business can't hire people because they're getting paid more to stay at home. And we said this would happen. And now our economy isn't recovering. I mean, what do you think about the jobs report recently?
So are you you must be upset with the former president that he can't let the party go. I mean, I don't understand. You keep putting this in the press. Isn't it not the former president?
If former President Trump asked me, I would say, Mr. President, please keep talking about the border. Please keep talking about these issues. That's what I would say to him.
So you believe he's a legitimate leader of the Republican Party?
I don't mind saying that.
And you believe he's a legitimate leader of the Republican Party?
That's why I believe. Well, hold on. I believe that you're not going to excommunicate a former president, right? And I refuse to go into this sort of black and white thinking about it's either totally one thing or totally the other. These are complex human relationships that involve millions of people. And I have always said, look, I do not think Trump is the devil, and I won't say that. I don't think he's Jesus either. You know, I'm a rational human being about this.
I get that.
Okay? And I'm going to agree where I agree, and I'm going to disagree where I disagree, and I refuse to allow this drama to engulf us. That's what Kevin McCarthy was saying. I fully agree with that. Mm-hmm. And there's no point in relitigating some of these things. Look, I say this to Liz and I say this to Adam. You're not going to get the colleagues who believe in that stuff to apologize to you, to agree with you. Look, I stand by everything I've ever said and done, and that's all I can speak for. And I speak for my constituents who care about those issues that I've told you about. And I think those are the issues we should be debating on this program. You've got a great show. You've got a lot of listeners. Let's debate environmental policy. Let's debate healthcare policy and border policy. I'll go toe-to-toe with on all of it.
We would love to see that. Contact the former president about that situation. Anyway, Congressman Dan Crenshaw, I do appreciate you coming on and sharing your perspective with us. I think that's very important. So thank you. Let me turn Let me turn to now a different perspective on this with Congressman Adam Kinzinger. So, Congressman, why do you? I know where you stand on this. Why do you believe you can't both appease former President Trump and his narrative there, and somehow build the Republican Party?
Well, it's two things. Number one, Trump set the table. He's the one that continually brings up a stolen election narrative. He's the one that has convinced members of Congress, including what we saw a few days ago, to have a hearing on January 6th and claim that this was nothing but a tourist group, or that it was hugs and kisses. I mean, if you saw the press releases he put out yesterday about this is the lie of the century, the greatest crime of the century. You cannot, on the one hand, say that Donald Trump is a leader or the leader of the Republican Party, which I believe he is the leader of the Republican Party right now, because Kevin McCarthy gave him his leadership card. You can't say he's the leader and then say we have to move on. I would love to move on, Chuck, but listen, when Liz Cheney, probably on a total of maybe 4 or 5 times, just simply answered questions that the election wasn't stolen, and then Donald Trump dozens and dozens of times says it is, it's not Liz's fault.
Hey, what is the Republican Party now? I want to put up a Club for Growth stat here. It was Chip Roy and Elise Stefanik who ended up replacing Liz Cheney. She has a lifetime Club for Growth record of 35%. This is a conservative economic group. And Chip Roy is a 100%. For what it's worth, Ilhan Omar, a Democratic member of Congress from Minnesota, has a higher lifetime Club for Growth rating than Elise Stefanik. What does that say to the American people about what the Republican Party is today?
Well, I think what it needs to say to any Republican that's maybe kind of confused by the moment we're in is policy doesn't matter anymore. It literally is all your loyalty to Donald Trump. As I've said before, this is something that echoes a little bit out of North Korea, where no matter what policy comes out, you're loyal to the guy. Think about this. Donald Trump, I had so many people that said, I don't like what Donald Trump tweets, but I like his policies, so I'm going to support him. Liz Cheney, everybody's saying, look, I like her policies, I don't like what she tweets, so she needs to leave. What that shows to me is an inconsistency that is built solely around allegiance to one man, Donald Trump. And we have to recognize that as a party. And we have to recognize that 4 months ago, we allowed basically the narrative to lead to an insurgency on January 6th. And until we take ownership of that, we can't heal. That's why I think it's so important.
How long do you fight to stay a member of a club or reform a club that doesn't want you? And I'm referring to the Republican Party.
You know, look, I've been a Republican far longer than Donald Trump has, and I'm not going to let him come in and hijack my party and turn it into something that, great people like Ronald Reagan and George W. and George H.W. Bush and all the great leaders back did not want it to be. I'm not going to let him win. I'm not going to let Donald Trump win at that. So that's what the fight's about. And I believe in what we used to believe in with 21st century solutions, though.
What do you, the biggest problem, it was interesting to